What you doing? Oh, I'm currently working on this whip that I hope will become an FO, but it might become a UFO and then I'd have to frog it, which would really be a bummer. Hi, it's Sonia here, the Pretty Stitch, with today's episode of Yarn Matters. So what the heck did I just say? Well, did you know that there is slang in the crochet and knitting worlds? There is, I know, really? It's crazy. So I thought today's episode we would go over some of the slang that is in knitting and crocheting, just for something fun, and in case you wanted to learn some new slang words, you're in the right place. So what I said in the beginning was I was talking about a whip. So what is a whip? A whip means it's WIP and it's work in progress. So I was doing a work in progress when I was crocheting. And I was hoping that it will turn into an FO. So what the heck is an FO? An FO is a finished object. And when we're knitting and crocheting, we hope for a lot of FOs. Doesn't always happen. They might turn into UFOs. And UFOs are unfinished objects. And I have a lot of those. I have a lot of unfinished objects in my house. Hopefully they will turn into FOs, but they might be UFOs. And then, as I said, I might have to frog them. So what does frogging? Frogging means to unravel a project, and the reason why we say frog is sometimes when you're doing it really fast, it makes like a ribbit sound or rip sound. So it was just something cute that somebody came up when they had to undo a project, they were frogging it. So you have your finished objects, FOs, your UFOs, your unfinished objects, your frogging your projects, and you have your whips. And there is more slang than just that. Now there's different slang for crocheting and for knitting, and sometimes they are the same, like the frogging, the UFOs, the FOs. Those can apply to knitting or crocheting, but you might see something that says HTOH. Which means hot off the hook. So if you just made something and it's a brand new, freshly made FO, that would be HOTH, hot off the hook. And then the same could apply for knitting, so it would be HOTN for hot off the needles. So another term that you might see or hear in the knitting crocheting world is bi-craftual. Which I'm probably not saying that, bi-craftual. It's hard to say. Bi-craftual. I will put it up on the screen. But what that means is you can knit and crochet. You can do both crafts. Some people are just knitters, some people are just crocheters, and some people are bi-craftual, which I can't say that word. And I am one of those people, but I also do Tunisian crochet, so am I tri-craftual, which would be, three. TRI means three, so maybe I came up with a new term, tri-craftual. But yes, bi-craftual means that you can knit and crochet. So another abbreviation that you might see would be a CAL or a KAL. So that is, CAL is a crochet along and KAL is a knit along. So what that means is usually it's a group, they're picking one project or a topic. So let's say I know some groups will say, we're going to be knitting hats. And it might just be a particular pattern, or you could just make any hat. So that would be, if it's crochet along, you're just making the same thing together, or knit along, you're knitting the same thing together. So that's what that means. You might see the term LYS, and that means local yarn store. So you might see someone saying, or maybe on Instagram or whatever, and they'll be like, I am going to my LYS. Well, they're just going to their local yarn store. So another term that you might see is MCAL or MKAL, and that means mystery crochet along or mystery knit along. So sometimes some groups, they will have a mystery crochet along. So I've never done one of these. It sounds like it could be kind of fun where the person that's in charge of the knit or crochet along will drop clues or maybe only give parts of a pattern, and the person just starts making it. There's no pictures or anything. They're just following the directions they have, and then they try to guess what they're making. So I think that could be kind of fun. So maybe I'll have to try one of these days. So some other terms, some other crochet slang that you might hear is yarn barf. And I deal with yarn barf a lot. It's basically yarn that does not come out of the skein very well. Like you're pulling it out and then all of a sudden it just does this. And it's like a tangled disaster. Which if you're working with ice yarns, which I like ice yarns, but ice yarns and we have a tricky relationship, a turbulent relationship, because ice yarns always turns into yarn barf for me. And maybe it's user error, maybe I am the only one that has this problem when I'm using ice yarns. It probably is. But every time. And I like their yarns. I think their yarns are very nice. I could put a link to ice yarns if you're curious as to what ice yarns is, but it always turns into yarn barf for me. Every single time. Every time. And then you might hear another slang of yarn chicken. So what is yarn chicken? So it's when you have a project that you're working on and you think, and I do this a lot too, you think you're going to have enough yarn. You hope you have enough yarn. So you're just crocheting or knitting along, just, hoping and praying that you have enough yarn. And then you see, oh, I'm coming up to the end of the skein of yarn or ball of yarn, and I've got 2 rows left, and you're just like, am I going to make it? I hope so, but I'm not sure. So you're playing yarn chicken, and sometimes you win, and most times in my case I lose. But hopefully you'll win if you're playing yarn chicken. And once in a while I've won, and I literally have had like that much yarn left. I mean, I really played it close. So if you've heard the term yarn chicken, that's what it means. It's basically, it's you against the yarn. Are you going to have enough yarn for your project? Hopefully you will. So another term you might hear, and this is in the knitting world, is tinking. So what is tinking? Tinking is knit spelled backwards, and it's basically if you're knitting along and then lo and behold, which happens to me quite a bit, you see a mistake and you're like, no. So what you want to do is slowly, basically almost knitting backwards at like taking apart your project very carefully. You're tinking back to your mistake so that you can fix it. Which that is the downfall with knitting for me or the downside, not downfall, downside. Because when you're crocheting and you have a mistake, you're like, you could be crocheting and be like, oh no, I have a mistake. But you just have to frog back. You can just go whoosh, whoosh, until you get to where you messed up, pop your hook back in the loop, tighten her up, and then just go fix it. But no, knitting, you're like very carefully going back and hoping you don't drop stitches or you put them back on the needles correctly, so that you can fix your mistake. That it's can be a tough time when you're tinking back. Another term you might hear is DK, which means double knit yarn. So if you've heard, I've used it quite often if you've seen any of my tutorials, and I will tell you what kind of yarn you need, and so you'll see D-Kate weight. So you might be wondering, what the heck does D-Kate weight yarn mean? D-Kate weight yarn is double knit weight yarn. That's all it means. So my last word that I'm going to share that you might see in the knitting crocheting world is Ravelry. And I do talk about Ravelry, and you're like, what the heck is that? Ravelry is a website. It's a knitting and crocheting website. And it's free to join. I am not sponsored, affiliated by any means, but I've had a long relationship with Ravelry. I've been a member probably for about 12 years now, and I think it's a fantastic resource for anyone that loves to knit and crochet. You can get free patterns, They have message boards on there if you have questions, if you're a newer knitter, crocheter, and you have a question about something, someone will have the answer on there. And most people are really nice on Ravelry. I've met friends on Ravelry, internet friends, but have had fantastic interactions. I've learned a lot on there, and I've get a lot of patterns tested on there. So I think Ravelry is a wonderful resource. So if you've heard of the term, oh, did you look on Ravelry? Did you check out Ravelry? It's a website. It's free to join. They have free patterns, lots of information on there, and I think it's a great site. So those are all of the crochet and knit slang that I could think of. So I hope that you learned something and it was a little fun too. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you didn't like this video, that's okay. Just scroll on by and I will see you next time. Bye!